Good evening. The Lee County Board of Commissioners will now come to order. The order of business will be an invocation, first by Mrs. Shook, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join us at this time and stand, please.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you thanking you and praising you for our great nation. We thank you for the plan you gave to our forefathers by which to govern our nation and for the division of powers, that our destiny does not rest in the hands of one person. We pray that by your holy power, you give elected officials at all levels of government the wisdom to make decisions that would strengthen and prosper our county, state, and nation. Let the elected officials and legislative bodies be motivated by your hand and not their own personal concerns. We pray that you will be with our military men and women who are serving our country and fighting for our freedoms. We pray that you will guide them to victory and they will return safely to their loved ones. We pray that you will comfort and be with the family and friends of 17-year-old Joshua Britt, who lost his life in a tragic accident Friday evening. May the heartfelt prayers of so many in our county reach that family. All of these things we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on a pleasantly rainy afternoon. It's nice to have you with us. Next order of business will be the addition to the agenda. If anyone has anything they would like to bring up at this time.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I need to add a request from the City of Sanford for a budget amendment to the 911 fund so that they can purchase some equipment before the end of the year.
Okay, and I believe that item is in your material, and if you would place it on your agenda, we'll make that item B as in boy, under new business. Is there anything else?
It's in the extra material.
Asking to put it in the consent agenda. Do it.
Consent agenda or? the new
Whatever
business?
your pleasure. Do you wish to discuss it or put it on the consent?
Let's do that. Let's put it in the consent agenda. if you
All right, the motion is made to put that in the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed? Then that will be part of the consent agenda. Now, to look at the consent agenda, let's see if there is anything that needs to be added or discussed there. If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I have just a couple of questions. John, on the workers' comp, item H, I just need explanation. On page 30, I circled under municipal, township, county, or the annual premium was $133,000. That's not municipal or township, that's just strictly county?
That's just the classified type of employee, basic government worker, laborer. And so that's the classification that's under the law.
And I found it interesting that federal government has also said that we need to add terrorism protection in here of an amount of $1,472.
You have to have it in there or they don't cover it if it occurs.
Okay. And the next question was on the county health department fee service. Are there any customers who go to the health department that don't pay any fees?
I would say yes. They try to collect fees from those that come to the department. If they cannot pay it, they still have to provide the service. So, yes, they would get that for free if they could not pay for it.
And I guess I asked that because it seems like a while back, they wrote off some accounts receivable. And so
Yes,
now
ma'am.
they're going to increase fees, so.
Yes, ma'am.
My collection doesn't make any difference.
Hopefully those that can pay will make up for those that can't.
And my last question, I hope I can understand all this because I did this on Friday. Item L, changes to the state consolidated agreement with Lee County. Is that available online by any chance? I know there was a note that it was available in Danielle's office, but is it possible to have that be available online to view?
How many pages is that?
It's several pages. I mean, you can be added to that, no problem.
Okay.
Website, if you wish.
I think that would be helpful, just so. That's all I had, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll vote now on the consent agenda. All in favor of the consent agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is passed. Thank you very much. We come now to public comments, and let me just mention that there are several people that signed up, and I believe they are going to speak on behalf of the public hearing. And so this public comment section that we're going into right now is for a more general presentation to us, a 3-minute talk that somebody may wish to give. And we have one speaker for that, Mr. Clark, and the other 2 people who have signed up to speak within the bounds of the public hearing. I'll just hold off and invite you once we go into the public hearing session. So, having said that, Mr. Clark, would you come forward? Thank you.
Keith Clark, 212 Acorn Drive, Sanford, North Carolina. I want to first take a moment to mention to those people who don't have any source of local news and that covered this and may have missed it in my blog, that as you probably know, construction is underway at the Lee Senior High School. Concrete walkway has been poured, fencing is up. The other item that we were pleased to report on, and it reminds me of what the chairman said about the stars lining up. And I believe the estimate from the investment advisors was that the county had saved around $8 million by being able to do its financing at this particular time. And it is a significant amount of savings for the taxpayers. I regret that I didn't know that other item was on the agenda. The city of Sanford is currently in the process of building a $67 million water plant. They are funding that with 3 to 4% increases annually in water and sewer rates. Now that means that the county individuals, who I'm unfortunately not still one of, but are pay double that amount. That amount for this year is 11 cents per 100 as a tax increase. It's a hidden tax increase. But my main point is that they are using user fees to fund it. May or may not be justifiable. I think they ought to get a general obligation bond. But why should people in the county who get only water services be the subject of fee raises when they don't get any benefit from the sewer plant directly? And I believe that those commissioners who represent portions of the county need to bring before this body some resolution on behalf of those people who find themselves taxed without representation and at the victim of a monopoly against which they have no redress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay, we'll now move into new business, and I will, before we open the floor for public hearing, just remind anyone who wishes to speak that we would ask you to keep your remarks to around 3 minutes or so, and identify yourself and your address, if you would, please. I think with this type of a public hearing, we're not so focused on pro and con as to just hear from citizens how they feel in general. So having said that, I now declare us in a public hearing, and I have two speakers who have signed up to speak. The first one is Mr. Or Mrs. Kay Ring, is that correct? If you'd come forward, please. And good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kay Ring. I'm Executive Director with Haven and Lee County, and the address is 160 Charlotte Avenue. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I would like to take just a few moments and share some numbers with you all. In the 2009 fiscal year, Haven assisted 1,640 domestic violence and sexual assault victims and answered over 2,700 crisis calls. We also provided right at 3,000 bed nights for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and their children. At the end of April this fiscal year, we have already assisted 1,624 victims. We are seeing our numbers climb extensionally. We estimate that we will serve over 2,000 victims this fiscal year. It is with your support that we are able to continue to provide these much needed services. This year the county is proposing $9,400 to help fund Haven. We would like to request that you approve that amount without any further cuts. As you know, our budgets are being cut on a state and federal levels. We would just like to ask that you approve that amount. On behalf of Haven staff, the board of directors, and the citizens that we serve here in Lee County, we'd like to thank you for your time and consideration. I can answer any questions if you want.
Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Hedrick. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Hayes and Commissioners. My name is Bo Hedrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club. We're located at 1414 Bragg Street at O.T. Sloan Park. I wanted to come before you and let you know that we made the formal application for the first time this year, asking for support from the county for our efforts. We did that because we lost about $313,000 of state and federal grant money, and that represents half of our budget. We've come before you again to ask you to consider this appeal for the simple fact that we are working with children throughout Lee County, school-age children, and we're trying to address some of the problems literally that can help us as county taxpayers to save some resources. Over the 14-year history of the club, we've served over 13,800 Lee County residents. We've had 0 school dropouts, 1 teen pregnancy, and 4 arrests from that group. And you know, in talking with our county juvenile court counselor, I understand that a one-night stay in juvenile detention costs our county $89. And, you know, she pointed out that that tab for us right now in this fiscal year is $46,725. And we need to be able to keep the club doors open. We know that you make these considerations using taxpayer dollars and have to be very careful about those funds being spent, but I hope that our efforts are supplementing some issues that you're trying to address as well. So, and along those lines, even though we're behind with our budget. It's still business as usual. I have handed Ms. Dalrymple a one-page survey that I've asked her to distribute to each of you. It's asking for your opinion as a community leader on the issue of gangs in our county. And if you would be so kind as to spend 10 minutes with that sheet of paper and answer those questions and get them back to us, we will put that in our community gang assessment that we're working on for the Department of Juvenile Justice. We have a small grant with them. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. There were only 2 speakers who signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to speak about the budget process? Mr. Clark?
Mr. Chairman, I first would like to congratulate your staff in the manner in which it has put together its budget and the manner in which it has worked the board to give the information that it needs. I watched a 37-minute presentation, 37-page presentation on the budget to the Sanford City Council. They didn't learn as much in 37 minutes as they would have learned from Mr. Crumpton in 2. I did learn enough to know that there's plenty of money sitting in the city of Sanford, and that we have agreements with them. And I don't know how it works when they decide that they, having plenty of money, can afford to give their employees a raise. And we have squeezed down beyond anything they comprehend. We're building skate parks, which, by the way, is not scheduled to be built according to the county's recreation plan. So I don't know how our agreements work for them, but I certainly don't think we should bear the tab, you should bear the tab, under the financial pressures that you're under in the cost-sharing agreements for their decisions about how they choose to compensate the folks that are under their decision to compensate, if that makes sense. That if they choose to do that, then they ought to bear the full brunt of it, not additional funds that could go to Haven, which I can speak on some behalf of, in seeing that it is a good, and the Boys and Girls Club, both of these clubs here, people can talk about nonprofits and what the criteria is. When the criteria is that they're saving you money and it's pay me now or pay me later, you need to be wise and prudent, not worry about precedent. I think it's important for people not to become overly dependent, but it's like the decision and recommendation in the Sanford City Council not to fund the Temple Theater. They get a special tax for downtown. They could use that money to fund significantly, and as I see it, it does as much for downtown merchants as the way they're currently spending their money. So I think anywhere that you have agreements that as a taxpayer in both places, they are flush. I say that to the nonprofits, they're flush, and I think that we shouldn't bear the burden twice for their management of the public's resources. And again, I want to compliment your staff.
Thank you. Are there any other people wishing to speak about the budget that's before us? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed. At this time, we, speaking to the board, have an opportunity to talk about the budget, raise any questions that you might feel are appropriate, comments about the presentations that were made to us tonight. But before we get into that, I do want to mention to you that we have tentatively scheduled a budget workshop, another budget discussion. From 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, June the 3rd. We had talked about this earlier and sort of penciled it in tentatively, and it's still there and will probably serve us well. But it's your pleasure. But I think everybody has that, and I wanted to mention it again. That would be 4 to 6 on Thursday, June the 3rd. And then on the 21st of June, at that board meeting is when we, I believe, will approve the budget as it is or as it is amended. So there are the dates before us, and by June 30, we have to have a balanced and approved budget. The floor is open for discussion about the budget. As you please.
I do have one thing.
Mr. Kelly?
Both nonprofits that did come in here today and talk to us, I think, are asking for money this year, and one having received it the prior year, and one Boys and Girls Club, is definitely falling on hard times. I would urge other board members to support both of these entities, in that, as Mr. Clark did say, it is a pay me now or pay me later. These two entities align with our goals and values as a governing body, and trying to do the same types of things we do. So I would urge you to support that. Yes, well, I'm talking about the two that came before us today. But yes, they can.
Anyone else?
Does Haven serve customers who are not residents of Lee County?
Yes, ma'am, we do. A part of the dynamic of domestic violence and sexual assault is clients may have to be moved from county to county for safety reasons. So yes, we do serve clients who are not Lee County residents to begin with. But with that being said, we also take Lee County residents and place them in surrounding counties, and actually even other states, for safety purposes. So it's kind of a trade-off. For everyone that we get in from another county or even another state, we send one of our citizens to another county or another state.
Are there, like nonprofits have an audit, so does this type of thing show up in an audit that shows, how many Lee County residents you serve, and then how many from outside the county?
We do not have to track that for state and federal statistics that we have, but we do track what county or state that clients come to if they come through our shelter. And it's probably about 2% of our clients who receive shelter services, that's not including the other services we provide, are clients from outside of the county.
And does funding from those other counties or states follow the person?
No, ma'am, it does not. Because the way we receive the majority of our funding from Council for Women and from Governor's Crime Commission, and we get specific amounts of money. It's divided across the state, and the funding does not follow them, but we receive money, and it's to account for those individuals that we may get from other counties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question for Mr. Hendrick about the gap that you're facing, the deficit. What is that number now? And could you say something about what type of ongoing fundraising is taking place and the participation of your board in that process?
Yes, sir. We made budget adjustments. The gap that you mentioned was at about $175,000. We have had to try to meet it in the middle by cutting extra costs. One way that we've done that is all of our staff, traditionally we'd close for 2 days at the beginning and end of summer so that we could get things back together like a work day at school. Well, because the beginning and end of summer are the lowest attendance weeks for us, we are closing down the beginning of summer for 1 week and the end for 1 week, and all the staff will be laid off. There's $20,000 of savings there, and it doesn't put our children at that much risk. Along the lines of the fundraisers, we have probably seen a threefold increase in local contributions, but as compared to 2 years ago. But at the same time, those contributions are maybe 25 to 40% of what they used to be. So we had a great response from the community with the golf tournament. I hope you have been able to see that in the local newspaper. We raised $50,000. That's the only budget line item that we've met on the income side this year, and we're very thankful for that. But we are more concerned about viability 6 months from now. You know, you hear the term time is money. Well, in our case, money allows us time to try to pursue other grant opportunities, and we are worried some of the funds we have in-house right now are final payments from grants that were issued last year. They will not be coming through in May of 2011 because those grants aren't there anymore. So while we're trying to cut costs, we're also trying to raise resources in other areas.
Is this true all over the state? And I mean,
With Boys and Girls Clubs,
Yeah.
And other nonprofits,
yeah.
it's the same thing for all of us.
Uh-huh.
You know, whenever you do receive grants, that grant may say hire 2 positions and do this programming. So your budget's going to increase, but your staffing will as well. There are a lot of nonprofits that are doing the essentials. We are doing fewer field trips. This summer, we actually have increased the user fee for our clients. It will now be $20 per week, but for that, they'll get 57.5 hours of access to the club and breakfast and lunch, a USDA program that we fed, breakfast and lunch. And if we have clients who need to talk to us about that cost, we're going to take care of the children that need it.
Thank you. That's appreciate that. And
Well, I have a
Yes, ma'am.
question. If I wanted to, me as a private citizen, wanted to sponsor one student for the whole year, what would that cost to me be?
I've got it from last year. Oh my. I can't put my finger on the number, but here it is. Cost per member for 2009 was $803. You take our total membership, divide it into the cost to run the program, and that's what that number was. So with this year, the cuts that we've made, that number will probably be closer to $600.
how much?
$600.
Uh-huh.
I would think, because we had a couple of large grants last year whenever we were, that fell into this category.
How many people are participating in the current year? How many?
We will register 1,000 members, give or take 50. We do that. We've done that for the past 5 or 6 years, and on a daily basis, we will see anywhere from 300 to 400 children between our 2 sites. But it's seasonal. Some will play baseball in the spring. They won't come. They'll sign up for the summer, or they'll sign up for the fall. But on a daily basis, 300 to 400 kids.
Okay.
Just one comment on that. I think that's an excellent thought, and maybe I'm a little slow on the uptake, but do you have scholarships, or do you have a plan that sort of encompasses this? Because it really makes a lot of sense to some people. I can see how one would like to give $600 if they could, even spread out over a year or whatever, to sponsor a student and to help you make ends meet in that process.
We have different opportunities where we send solicitations out that say, would you like to sponsor a child for 6 months or a year, and the costs associated with that. But in regards to that very issue, whenever we learn that a child has a situation where the parents can't take care of the cost, we want to sit down and talk to the parent. And if they need it at 0 cost, we can make that happen. But we challenge the parent. I have a parent that has 3 children that need to come this summer. She can't handle the $60 a week, because it's $20 per child. And the conversation that I've had with her is, whenever you get paid, can you do $20? So, because the children need to see the parents assuming some responsibility and working to make it happen. But in the end, if a child needs to be there, money's not going to be an issue. I'm not going to let that get in the way.
Thank you. That's very important to know. Thank you very much. And the Haven as well. I mean, I just wanted to, I'm aware of what you all do and the rest of the commissioners, but didn't want to, slight you in the sense of that kind of question. You all do a terrific job and save lives all the time. Okay. Any other discussion about the budget at this time? If not, we will move along, and we've come to the manager's report, and I believe Mrs. Mentor is going to speak to us about the financial report.
You have in your package the report for the month of April 2010. As you can see, and as we've been tracking all along, our property tax revenues have come in higher than predicted this year. We're at 102% of our budget for the year. Last year at this time we were only at 99.5%. So that is helping our bottom line quite a bit this year. We still are running behind in other taxes and license. Most of that's the deed excise. However, if you will notice, April 2010, we were about $6,500 ahead of where we were April of last year. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that Ms. McInnes has notified John that that was her best month in the last couple of years. So that was good news to hear. So hopefully that is a sign that maybe we are on the upturn of this thing instead of continuing to bottom out. Permits and fees is ahead of this year of where it was last year for the same time frame. Investment earnings are still quite a bit behind this time frame last year, and don't see that turning the tide yet. As far as expenditures go, 83% was our target, and most of our departments are well below that. Those who are at the target amount are appropriations we pay monthly. And so you've now finished the third quarter of that, so they would be in line for the 10th month. So that is really all I had on that, unless y'all have some specific questions. Okay.
Questions?
I've also passed around the sales tax collections through the month of February. As you can see, February's numbers were low. However, we understand that the numbers have started turning and that should be hopefully the bottom, and that March numbers should look better. If that holds true, we should still be hopefully okay with our projections that are on there.
Any questions for Mrs. Mentor?
My questions will come afterwards because I can't.
I understand, and I
digest this
don't
when we
get the
get it.
numbers in time to get it in the agenda package. They did not post them until the 12th this time, and the agenda deadline was well before that.
Always really good at answering this.
So,
I'll be forthcoming.
to sum it up, you're feeling a little optimistic, a little buoyed over the cautiously optimistic.
I'm still very cautiously optimistic until I see the numbers at a higher level. I'm still cautiously optimistic based on what we're hearing. I feel like you may still pull out the projections. I still don't think there's any way we'll come back and make budget this year. But that hopefully we will be able to make our projections.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now move to Commissioner's comments. Mr. Crumpton, before we do that, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, sir, you just went through it just beautifully.
Okay, all right. You don't want to confuse us, all right.
No, sir, all I ask is that if the board wants to have the workshop on the 3rd, is they have any questions in advance, that would be very helpful so that we could go ahead and get information together. I did talk to Dr. Moss today, Now with their groundbreaking at 3 o'clock, I didn't ask him if he could make that day, but he would come and discuss his budget with us in a workshop setting. So anybody else that y'all would like to talk to, just let us know.
Very good. I think that would be very helpful for anybody who really wants to get into greater degree of education budget, if he could come. But we need to request that. We don't want to waste his time. And so if anything that we want to talk about, let's be sure to let Mr. Crumpton know so that he can have the right person at that meeting, so that we can come to some closure, hopefully, at that time, and then be ready to meet our obligation by the end of June. Now, for commissioners' comments, let's do that. Mr. Pascal, do you have some words of wisdom for us?
Well, I don't know what to call it, words of wisdom or not, but we got notice from the rural development that we got a $128,000 grant. I don't know whether that means anything or not. You'll have to ask Mr. Crumpton.
Sounds good.
But it's better than we've been getting, so.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Ms. Shuck?
Is that the water deal on Plank Road?
No,
I think you and I talked about that the other day, but
It's a 75% grant, and now we need to work on the 25% match. And we have tried other avenues to get additional matching funds and have not been successful. So we may end up having to go back to the property owners, talk to them about an assessment, but being assessed for $32,000 versus $160,000 is a lot better. So I think it's a lot of people were surprised that we got this grant, and now we need to work through it and get that water line out there.
I have a couple other things in comments. When all of this stuff started happening in Wake County about taxpayer dollars being used to fund abortion and the health plans, I'd asked you about it, and you said you checked into it and said that our health plan actually did that, but you thought when we renewed it, there was something we could not check off or whatever, so it wasn't included. What's the status of that?
That's a good question. I haven't checked up on that.
I have a meeting with,
Sorry, I'm looking towards Ms. McGee. I kind of put health insurance behind us because
I have a
moving
meeting
on to
with
what's
Mr.
something else.
Broward on Wednesday, and we'll go through that with him and find out where we are on that. But Blue Cross was trying to put that in the contracts with other people too. But we have.
So it's a matter of Blue Cross automatically
It's
sticking
a Blue
this in
Cross
there.
issue because we're fully insured with Blue Cross. It's a Blue Cross issue.
Yeah.
It's not something the county can pick and choose because we're fully insured. If we were self-insured, then we could, but we're fully insured. And so I'll talk to him about that on Wednesday.
My understanding that there was something that we could say we don't want to participate in this or whatever, that.
But they have
Well, that was
yeah.
that
that was
what-
the original discussion.
Okay.
And they have that discussion going on with a lot of counties and cities because they were all in the same boat. But that is going on.
Okay. Second question I had was in the recommended budget thing as far as what the penny generates, was that a typo? It was 120 some million or whatever?
Yeah, that got corrected.
It did get corrected?
It's
Okay.
latest thing.
Okay. And then
Mine says
the.
456,000.
And then the other thing, I just want the citizens, at our last meeting, you kind of dropped a bombshell, and I'm not sure that everybody picked up on it, but it has to do with the Sandley debt payment. So could you kind of bring the viewing audience up to date on the challenges there, and not so much in this budget year, but the next budget year with that?
Well, I call it our debt service fund, but it's really not a debt service fund. It's revenues that we use that are dedicated to cover our debt service. And the $600,000 ADM cut that the state did will start to catch up with us next year. And also the percentage of the sales tax revenues that go towards debt service, that's beginning to catch up with us, that decline. So when there was been a lot of discussion about the high school, and I wanted to make perfectly clear that what we did with the high school was we took a debt issuance and dedicated a revenue source that would cover it. Back when we issued the debt for the Sand Lee Middle School, we really didn't dedicate anything. We projected this growth in our tax base and growth in sales taxes, and as the Sand Lee debt picked up and we going along and start picking up more principal, that growth would cover that. Well, the growth's not there. And so next year we will end up with a gap in our, I call it the debt service fund, but it's really our debt service revenues to go towards all the other debt. And it's really what's driving the train is that Sand Lee Middle School debt.
And the reason that it hasn't been as much of a factor up to now is that we've had some money left over in that COPS original financing, but that's going to be completely gone.
We will exhaust that in next year's budget. Yes, ma'am.
And so your projection for that budget shortfall going in, if things stay the same economy-wise?
Just on the debt service, it's a little over $1 million, about $1.2 million.
And
But I can say that today, but a year from now, you don't know where growth is and what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen with the state. I think it's good that we're waiting to pass the budget to June 21st, because the way the Senate and the House are moving through the budget, I think they'll be through it pretty quickly, and we'll know the damage in advance this time. Last year they hit us with almost $1 million in either costs or revenue cuts, and it occurred after we passed the budget. So we were playing catch up from almost the first month right after they passed their budget. So if things aren't looking good, we can make adjustments before we pass the budget. So
I saw that there's some discussion in the Senate where they're one time only, so that they're thinking about taking the school construction funds from the lottery, directing it toward teachers so they don't have to lay off teachers. And that would kind of throw a kink in our plans also, wouldn't it? If they were to do that.
I think it would throw more of a kink into the school board's plans. I caught wind that was part of the discussion. That's why we changed. I had, the motion changed where we would take it out of that $350,000 to help us, start recouping some of our capital funds that were going towards the high school, come from their current capital expense and not the lottery. We'd heard that, and if I'm in their shoes up there, it makes sense. It's still for education, the lottery. If they're just shifting it from capital to current expense, for them, I understood that, but we caught wind of it and saw that it might happen. So what it does is our responsibility is capital, and so it puts us behind in meeting those obligations. I think we sent out the school budget to everybody, and it had the list of everything that they were going to pay with the lottery funds. So if they put it into the Board of Education's hands where it says, okay, you can take the lottery and either use it for current expense to keep your teachers, or you can use it for capital, it's your choice. Based on their current situation, I think they would probably still go towards capital. Our school system seems to be better off, from the teacher perspective this year, and the smaller school systems seem to be handling the cuts a lot better than the bigger school systems. It's the next year where all the school systems get into that, and I think what you see across the state right now is the teachers are a powerful lobbying group, and we've had discussions about that, and I think it'll be interesting next year when there's a big hole in the state budget, and I fully expect them to put the counties right in the middle of the education debate.
Thank you, that's all I had.
No.
I just wanted to congratulate the Lee Early College graduates. That's a fantastic program, and the first group of graduates come through, so congratulations. And also to extend our sympathy to the Britt family and the Hickman family. We lost two very good young men this week in Lee County. And just keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
Okay.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Reeves?
Not a word.
Not a word, okay. Would you like to do your thing?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I move we go into closed session to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of business per North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A4.
Motion's been made. All in favor of going into closed session, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There is none. We are in closed session, and we'll go into the Wicker Room, please. We'll have a little more room in there tonight. Thank you.